Okay, so won't jump straight into this. We're going to try and share this out a little bit first before we get really rocking and rolling. So let's click some buttons here. There we go. Let's click that button. So that shared that out. Somebody already asking what the things are. So, like I say, this is all going to be very rough. It's all going to be very raw. There's not going to be an awful lot of bits and pieces. Can people hear me? Let's move the mic a bit closer. That'd be a really good idea. Let's adjust the volume settings there. Okay. So, like I say, this is a complete shot in the dark. This is obviously not how we usually do things, but boy, did we pick a day to do this and a time to do this. So, good evening, everybody. Greetings from Southampton and welcome to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell from bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, and you join us here for the first, this sort of test run of whatever this is on YouTube. I am recording off of the webcam on my laptop, so yes, it does look like I'm recording through a potato. I do have the podcast mic back out, so enjoy that. What I am going to do is I'm going to turn it round so you don't have a flashing red light in your eye line the entire time. But yes, as always with the BOTW What's Current stream, we talk about all the bits and pieces that are happening around the National Ice Hockey League. We focus on the National League. That is our bread and butter, but we do generally talk about most things in Division 1 and Division 2 in the North and in the South. Although, boy, did our format sheet get blown up in the last half hour or so. So, YouTube. We'll get onto the obvious really big news that's come in the last half an hour or so in a minute. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Like I say, a bit of an experiment. Periscope has been the home of the What's Current stream now since the inception. John Bullard, friend of the show, Cat's Whiskers and all those bits and pieces, started doing his Periscope streams, and we lovingly ripped him off, is pretty much the best way to describe it. However, had some ideas about tinkering with the format for the show, and actually one of the big things was the chat, which has always been a really big thing of what I've tried to do with the What's Current stream, getting your comments, your questions, and actually YouTube, you have a chat. You've got the chat box, you've got the live chat. I have a little thing down here, down this side of the screen as I'm looking at it. Don't need to see my boiler though. Let's move that slightly that way. So this will make it easier for me to kind of read comments, bits and pieces that are going on. Also as well, I'm going to look at potentially, if this works, having things like being able to kind of stream bits, which might make it easier to then kind of pull guests in as well. Like I say, this is stuff I was going to be doing anyway. COVID has obviously thrown a bunch of spanners in the works as to even whether we'll have hockey this year, this calendar year anymore of 2020. So so perfect time, if nothing else, to experiment, to tinker, to play around. Because when hockey does come back, and it will eventually come back, how are we going to do things? And why not give this a go? Why not experiment with the technologies that's out there? That's not going to say that when we do other bits and pieces, we're not going to, occasionally use Periscope as well. But the What's Current stream is something that I think has always done, we have more community of people at the moment. Hopefully we want to grow it bigger, want to make it bigger, want to make it better. And it'd be really nice if we can make it as good, if I can make it as good a show as possible. And actually that's about using things like good quality stuff. Like I've always had this pretty decent mic. It's the old podcast mic for those of you listening to the BOTW podcast. And it's here, and why not just try giving this a go, doing things, pushing the format and seeing what we can do. And if it doesn't work, people don't like it, then back to Periscope we'll go. That's the joy, is that we do have fallback options. So, we should probably start with the news that came out of the top of the hour, out of Bracknell. And boy, is this controversial news, scary news. It didn't help that the website fell apart pretty much straight away. for the bees on that front. But for those of you who haven't been paying attention, we'll just quickly bang through the press release that came out of the Bracknell Bees at 7 o'clock this evening, so just under 40 minutes ago. The TSI World Bracknell Bees have been notified this afternoon, Wednesday the 27th of May 2020, that the JNL Bracknell complex operated by John Lake Leisure Sport Limited are unfortunately commencing meaningful statutory consultations on potential staff redundancies. The statutory period for the consultation is 30 days, and the bees will then receive further information on future plans for the complex. Just to reassure those fans who have already purchased season tickets for the bees 2020-2021 NIHL national campaign, that full refunds will be given should the club be unable to participate in the sad event that the ice rink was unable to reopen. So there's a lot to break down there. We'll get the obvious bits out of the way. I have spoken to a representative from the Bees organisation this morning. This evening. They have nothing further to add at this time. Nobody else is going to be talking or commenting on it this evening from the organisation. I will, of course, keep pushing, and if I get anything else out of them, we will, of course, let you know through the BOTW channels. If we break that down, you have to assume that the COVID pandemic has played a part in this decision. The lack of money for the entire Bracknell complex, which of course includes the ski slope at Bracknell as well, is going to be making precisely zero money at the moment. This also is put into the fact as well, and it's purely a question as to it's speculation entirely. But there has been talk for a while that the John Lake Leisure Sport Company have been looking to offload the rink. Now, I am aware that in the past there had been discussions with Planet Ice potentially buying the rink. However, that's purely that is speculation. No one will go on the record and confirm that to me, but sources have told me that that's true. Where things stand at the moment are, as I say right now, right up in the air. So what this speaks of, though, is actually quite scary, and there is a real potential here that ice sport in Bracknell is done, and that's not something I'm saying lightly. Zed might be closing the rink for now, or just thinning out some staff for the summer. From my understanding, there is a real fear that the Bracknell rink is done, and that this is not going to be a temporary solution. That this might actually be the closure of Bracknell Ice Rink. Now, there is a month where the organisation will go through its redundancy procedures, and they will see, that there is a legal process here. It's 30 days where they have to have a consultation as to what they're doing. Now, what is in that consultation at the moment, we don't know. I will naturally try and do some digging around to see if I can get what I can get and see if there is anything there in terms of what staff are being told. That will be tough to do. And obviously, a lot of people are not going to be willing to share that information publicly for the good of their own job, but we will do what we can. But the fact that the bees are making this announcement, you see, the bees, if they didn't think there was a hope, if they didn't think that this was proper nuclear button option, they don't put in that last paragraph about refunds for season tickets. Now, some will say that's just them being cautious, just them being careful. Obviously, they need to prepare for the worst case scenario, and that's true. People do need to do that. However, you do wonder whether this is, obviously the Bees organisation will be in shock right at this particular point, and they will have to operate under that proviso. Firstly, it's actually good that the Bees did it. They could have sat on this news for a little while and left it and then just dropped the bombshell on everybody, actually, if they decide not to reopen the rink, that actually we're done. So the fact that people have been made aware is really good. And the fact they've obviously immediately said we will refund money if we can't play. But this doesn't bode well. I don't like this at all. This is very unnerving for the Bracknell Bees. And think about it as well. It's not even just the Bees. It's a mishmash of things here. Yes, the Bees are there, and the Bees are the top of the sort of the ice sports structure, the hockey structure in that rink. But it's the Bees, it's the Hornets, it's the Bracknell junior system, which is arguably one of the best junior systems in the country. It's the Queen Bees, who've been an absolute powerhouse of women's hockey, the Fire Bees, all the junior team, the junior teams below that massive structure. You think of how many GB women's international players have come out of Bracknell in the last few years because of their sheer dominance of the women's game. You think about all those young players who've come through the Bracknell system and gone on to success elsewhere. You think about, there are kids who travel from all over the region, and that could all be gone. And yeah, they're sure there are other options. Slough is there and Basingstoke is there, but what do you say to a kid who's in the under 15s, who's come all the way through the Bracknell junior system to now the rink just being shut? And it's terrifying. It's terrifying for a lot of people. What have we got here? John Robert. Sadly, if they're going into consultation, the rink is going to close unless an alternative buyer can be found. You think so? The whether John Knight have put let's have a quick look actually while we're talking as to whether John Knight Leisure Sports put something out themselves on that particular front. So we'll have a quick look as we're going. Jamie, sadly, I feel the Bees have been on the brink for a while, and John Knight wanted to sell the rink for land for a while. It would desperately be sad if ice hockey and Bracknell stuff. Yeah, very much so. And actually, the talk about selling the rink for land is obviously a very big one. Land is a very valuable commodity. Interesting time to do that, you think, in the middle of a pandemic, because it's not like it can be built on now. Doing it now, the return on such things would be problematic. It's not like they're going to get much out of it in the immediacy. Chris Gansby, good to hear from you, Chris. Always good. We look forward to you guys rocking and rolling in Nottingham again soon. No, it's the rink, not directly the club, but hopefully others don't have to follow. But with Blackburn announcing they're going to an NHL2, money is an issue everywhere, and COVID won't help. No, it will not help at all. It doesn't appear. There we are. Bracknell Ski Slope and Ice Rink. Are they? So there is nothing on their nothing on John Knight's social media. We'll just have a quick look at the Bracknell, their website. They're obviously closed at the moment. There's nothing immediately on the Bracknell website that I can see. No, they've not. So John Knight Leisure Sports have not put anything out via their own channels at this present time. So yeah, so that's the situation at the moment. The Bees have come out. They've made their statements. Eventually, we're not going to hear anything out of the club for a while. But you think for Bracknell, of course, yesterday was a different world. They announced Josh Ely Newman was returning to the Bees this morning, and by the evening, the entire season could be, the entire club could be gone, which is crackers. I mean, you think about the loss of teams we've had recently, and obviously the most recent one, particularly from a southern perspective, is obviously the loss of the Isle of Wight. And the rink on the island was obviously on the brink. It teetered for a while before everything kind of sort of fell down. And obviously there were big issues there beforehand with AEW, not that All Elite Wrestling, thankfully, but the investment company based in London. I don't think Cody Rhodes would have closed that rink, but yeah, there was writing on the wall. There was issues between the community company and the owners of the building for a while. Obviously now, even though it's taken a while for us to kind of get back to even a point where we're looking at potentially a rink being back on the island. So there is a way back from the brink. The problem is just that, this could be, getting it back to anywhere close to what it is now, if you lose it for even a season, is unthinkable. Obviously, there are options. Do Planet Ice inquire again about potentially buy the rink? Maybe. Is there another entity who would be interested in doing some, and maybe Bracknell becomes a cheap option into if they're an operator from overseas? Is it a way into the British market? That's the potential is there. But slap bang in the middle of a pandemic makes it really, really hard. And actually, that's obviously there are issues that are thrown up by the pandemic. You feel that this isn't quite something like Boeing, of course, where you are cutting jobs and have been heavily criticised by the unions for doing so in the middle of the pandemic, where Boeing are a multi-billion-dollar company. John Knight Leisure Sports are not. There is money there, but they are Boeing. They are not Airbus. They are not. And so here we are, kind of like left with this strange situation where one of the great names of British hockey might be 30 days away from dying. And what do you do about that? Obviously, the BFGW What's Current stream is going to build off of your comments. Thank you for commenting so far. If you've got questions, comments, anything else you want to say, please do stick it in the live chat. That'd be brilliant, and we will talk about some other bits and pieces. We of course had Planet Ice's statement yesterday about the return to opening from the start of July, as when they're going, and working their way through through those bits and pieces. I'm just going to quickly sort of pull up the statement as well on that. Certainly the Planet Ice statement was definitely an interesting read, and it's been sort of publicised in a few different places. I'm just quickly reading off of THF. So effectively, Planet Ice are looking to kind of reopen most of their facilities from the 4th of July. That's the provisional date at the moment, based on the UK COVID-19 structure. So the reopening structure that the government's put out, certainly for England at any rate. Planet Ice don't operate any rinks outside of England, so that will help on that front. So effectively, there'll be some bits and pieces happening again while social distancing can be kept in place. The thing that's obviously of interest for us is that they reckon, firstly, that junior hockey training may be able to happen again in small groups. Here's the interesting paragraph for most of us. As there is currently no clear guidance in relation to spectator sports, Planet Ice are currently not expecting the resumption of league hockey to begin this year. However, this will be reviewed in line with government guidance and engagement with the relative relevant ice hockey leagues. In terms of public skating, we are expecting to operate a reduced schedule based on the maximum capacity of 3 meters squared per person. These sessions will be in line with government guidelines and are expected to be issued prior to July 4th. All cafe and bar areas to remain closed. Vending and food drink will remain operations. So basically, you can get everything out of the vending machine. So obviously, and that's obviously wobbled quite a few people talking about obviously the social distancing guidelines and things like public skate sessions. Should hopefully be workable at least for ice dancers. Certainly individual ice dancers, because training can obviously happen if you've got a section off part of the rink and you can have 2 people, a coach and skater in there. That should be relatively straightforward to do. Junior hockey in small groups, providing there is guidance kind of given, around sort of small sports. That's obviously coming back for, we've seen cricketers in nets now in the last little while, so that'll be good. But yeah, so Planet Ice, obviously, again, that's a statement with preparation for the worst. So we will not see the resumption of league hockey in the year 2020, that we will see nothing until 2021. And unfortunately, we do need to prepare ourselves for that we are not going to see any hockey again this year, that we will have to watch the NHL, or probably most likely we'll see the NHL, because obviously they are very close to coming back. We'll talk about that more in a bit. But there'll be leagues in other countries where financially they can cope with playing behind closed doors. Playing behind closed doors is not an option for the majority of British hockey teams, and they need gate money to survive. Chris Gadsby there in the chat. Leagues will need some restructuring. Warehouses for NHL 1 surely can't go with only 6. What would you do to the leagues? Yeah, NHL 1 North, of course, with Blackburn moving out of Division 1 into Division 2 for next season. They've already said that they were going to do that. Bracknell will go from the South. It's not completely problematic for the South, I don't think. But in terms of league hockey, at the moment, what do you do? I mean, it's impossible to tell. For me, there has to be some part of sort of strategy about what the government reckons in terms of the return to proper spectator sport, because so many clubs can't operate without spectators. So what do you do on that front? A couple of interesting comments there. So Jamie thought PI statement was very negative. The way I see it in my most positive vibe, spectator entries back by as October at the earliest, but all depends on a vaccine. I don't think. I said a little while ago, I don't think the 2020 we don't start. Teams will be back training. I don't think if we see games, we don't see games till December. And for me, actually, I've said that we get a short season, 1 home, 1 away, banged together kind of January to March, and that's what we'll get. Chris Golly, though, here with a very interesting comment here. I can see a potential scenario of the season starting, say, February to September, then a month break and straight into the 21-2022 season. I'd actually argue that they do. It's kind of similar to my idea, like a different sort of time of the season. I'd actually argue, Chris, that if they can do they should do February to June, have a short season there, and then try and go again in September and get things back to normal as they possibly can do, rather than doing February to September. I don't see the need to stretch themselves through the summer if they don't necessarily need to. Kind of just do February, March, April, May. So you could do May into June, so 4 or 5 months to kind of maybe do 2 home, 2 away, or maybe like a 2-1 scenario, or 2 home, 2 away in that sort of locality split, and then 1-1. That might work. Kind of doing February to September, so kind of very similar to what a couple of football leagues do, what the League of Ireland does, what some of the Scandinavian leagues do in terms of starting in the late winter and then moving through, would work. I think that's entirely possible. As Chris mentions, though, obviously rearrangement of the national division isn't needed. No team has effectively pulled out yet. Bracknell are still technically there. What they would do if Bracknell do drop out, I think, will be a question. I do wonder whether maybe a team like Slough might take a punt on stepping up, because a lot of, some of those bigger teams in the NHL one South are not really in a position to do so. Streatham will not step up. They don't have the financial resources to do so. Chelmsford won't. Invicta probably won't after their outings they had in the 2-division split in NHL 1 South, when teams like Bracknell and Basingstoke and Swindon were there because they didn't fare very well. I think looking at a team from further north would put pressure on teams in the south. Obviously, there's that discussion now, particularly with North 1 being down to 6 teams. What happens there? In my head, you have this sort of big rearrangement, and you end up with the national division, and then you have 3 NHL Division 1s. You have 1 in the south. You then have a Midlands Conference, which would take in your teams like Solihull, Nottingham, and teams sort of around that area, maybe as far north as Sheffield. And then you have Billingham and Whitley joining their own conference with some of the Scottish teams. So you'd have something like Solway, Murrayfield, Kirkcaldy Kestrels, Billingham, Whitley, and then maybe one other. So maybe like one of them, maybe like Dundee, Paisley, for example, would be another option there. So have a 16 conference in the north, a 16 conference in the Midlands, maybe, and maybe those guys can have kind of like a crossover thing, because the South will survive on its own, and then you have sort of a winner from the sort of Midlands and North, and then you have a winner from the South, and you can have like a proper NIHL 1 national champion. Maybe that's kind of a way of doing it. Maybe that's sort of my initial thoughts on that one, as I've been spitballing stuff over the last couple of days in preparation for tonight. I was going to say, we had all the stuff we were going to talk about, and it all feels like pretty moot now, like all these talks of signings, but we really don't know what's going to happen. And there's a team that's like potentially going to be stuff that have existence in 30 days' time. So it feels a bit funny. We'll touch on it briefly, though. Obviously, like I say, Josh Ely Newman got announced by the Bees this morning. Awkward. Basingstoke announcing the return of Alex Mettam and Dan Weller-Evans. Understood that those guys will be back for Basingstoke, whatever happens in terms of this season. Certainly Dan Weller-Evans will definitely be back. He will they'll carry him out of Basingstoke in a box. Glenn Billing in Peterborough for 2 years is obviously a very good signing for them. Some very big signings, of course, since we last spoke. Edgar's Bepris leaving Swindon for Milton Keynes. That's very good for their top 6. You do wonder who he's there in place of. I wonder whether Tom Carlon's going back into retirement, potentially dropping to the third line. Martin Susters left Peterborough, and he has gone to the Sheffield Steeldogs. My understanding is his family have relocated around the Sheffield area, so that's partly why Susters has gone. But they announced the return of Nathan Salem and Martin Susters. That's some pretty decent offensive firepower for Ben Morgan up at the Steeldogs. Other than that, not tons of movement. People are very reluctant to commit. The fact that teams have sort of been selling season tickets has been a bit strange. I know the Nottingham Panthers, of course, in the Elite League have said that they're not going to sell a season ticket, and based on what they kind of don't know. And yeah, so it's all a bit of a strange one. We'll just get Peterborough's statement up actually about what was said, because obviously the EIHA, Scottish Ice Hockey UK have been working with other ice sports for kind of their restart and what they're going to do, but in terms of reopening ice venues for playing and the like, but it's all we're a very long way from anything at all, and everything should feel so up in the air at the moment. It's so depressing, isn't it? Maybe that's what we should do. Maybe we should do like live games of dice hockey, and we'll just recreate everything on the streams and kind of do it that way. Peterborough's statement actually I did like the other that came out this morning about bits and pieces. The club would like to issue the following statement to update fans following a statement from Planet Ice. First of all, we hope you're all staying safe and well in the current circumstances. Straightforward. A number of you have questions regarding a number of topics following Planet Ice statement. We'd like to try and answer those today. With regards to next season, the club will remain committed to preparing for the 2020-21 season, regardless of when this may start. We'll continue to prepare as we would for any other season, as if it's going to begin in September to allow us to be prepared for when hockey does return. Sensible, straightforward, that's what you do. However, we are aware the Planet Ice statement suggested hockey may not return to their rinks until the new year at the earliest. If this happens to be the case, the club will support this decision with the safety of everyone being of paramount importance in a situation such as the current COVID-19 pandemic. We've also considered the potential non-start of 2020-2021. In the event the season doesn't go ahead, we will refund all fans who have bought season tickets. Now, for me, in the middle of this, like I say, selling season tickets is weird, but it does obviously help from a cash flow perspective in the short term, but you're going to have pretty much going to have to refund everybody anyway. So that's going to hurt you whatever. Move MK into the south. If it's a 19 league, MK versus Peterborough is the biggest rivalry in the league, and it hurts that it's only 2 home, 2 away due to geographical reasons. Is it the biggest one? Is it? It probably gets the most fans in MK. Is MK Peterborough a bigger rivalry than some of the stuff that's been happening between Sheffield and Hull, between Bratton and Basingstoke? I mean, I'm obviously involved in that one, so I will disagree. I do definitely agree that having Peterborough and the thing. Here's one actually for you, Jamie. Peterborough and MK, if you play each other too much over the course of the season, does it dent the rivalry? Because this was the big thing that happened in the Elite League with the conference system that's had Nottingham and Sheffield playing each other umpteen bajillion times. Is that it's arguably watered down the rivalry. Do you want to play Peterborough more if it would do that? Just a thought. What's John got to say? You would imagine a Midlands league with some teams maybe stepping up from North/South 2 would benefit Nottingham Lions. I mean, they don't lose every game. Chris Gatsby will take all the help he can get. Potentially. I mean, Nottingham's only wins this past season came in the Midlands Cupness. Would Widnes step up into a more Midlands-based conference? I don't know, because if you think about some of the teams that are there. So Blackburn obviously step away. They were in the north, so that would leave them playing. That would leave not. So you'd be asking a team to step up to play teams like Solihull, like like Telford as well potentially. So let's just. But obviously you would need teams from North 2 to step up, and that would obviously throw things for a bit of a loop. But maybe this actually might help in terms of some of the unification of the leagues between the IHA and the Scottish League. If you end up having teams in the north of England playing teams in Scotland and teams in the sort of Yorkshire, Lancashire area playing down into the Midlands, would potentially work, I suppose. It's entirely doable. The other big question, of course, chucking things around in terms of ice hockey, is the NHL. The NHL have announced their plan for the resumption of play. The NHL PA Executive Committee signing off on the initial first phase of stuff, and they're moving into the next phase of things. So essentially what we're going to see is the regular season of the NHL is done. You have your initial winners. So you have a couple of the award winners. You'll have Alex Ovechkin winning his 9th, 10th Rocket Richard, along with Kucherov. I forgot who is it who's won the Art Ross. Is it Draisaitl? Draisaitl, I think, has won the Art Ross. All the divisional champions are obviously decided. What you have is a 2014 format. The West will be playing in one city, which is likely going to be Las Vegas, given the hotel situation that they have in Vegas at the moment. It'd be a fantastic thing to do. It'd be relatively easy to sort out, given the fact that Vegas has a buttload of hotels. In the East, it'd be interesting to see what city they use there, because they would need to avoid any places that are spiking with COVID, particularly. Vancouver and Canada, that means going across a border. Don't think that's going to happen for a lot of them. So you'd want to, certainly for the American-based teams, you'd venture, given that there's not that many, you've got a couple of Canadian teams in the playoffs, but you'd want them. You'd make the minimal amount come down rather than making everybody move north. Wouldn't put it past Columbus being the eastern venue for the playoffs. But what you have is you have the 4 best records of 3 divisional winners, and the best record after that are the top 4 seeds, so they are guaranteed a playoff spot. And then you have 5v12, 6v11, 7v10, 8v9, and a 5-game play-in series, so that you have your top 4 who will play each other to determine the seedings 1-4, and then the other guys will play a 5-game series will have 5-game series to play themselves in. You then have 8 teams, and then you work your way through. So that 5-game play-in series, the next round may also be 5 games. It may be 7, they've not decided, but the conference finals and the Stanley Cup final have been confirmed that they will be 7 games. But it does look like we're going to get nothing. David Pasternak, thank you, Jamie Jeebus. What I think was Kucherov. He does score a lot, to be fair. I'm a very, I focus when it comes to the NHL, I focus much more on the caps than I do on kind of like the league-wide picture. It could, but the rivalry is so strong. 2 of the last 3 games at NK have been 2,500 sellouts. I think the rivalry has grown within the 10 years. Bar the 2 years you went and experimented in the Elite League, of course. But yeah, so the NHL, like I said, it very much has its plan. There's obviously a lot of work to be done. Training camps are not going to start before July, so we're potentially going to not see a Stanley Cup final until maybe September, back end of August at the best, provide, series finish quickly. So there is potential we're going to get some hockey this summer, which is great, especially given the fact the Australian season is arguably not going to happen now, which is a real shame. I love watching the Australian hockey, although lockdowns is slowly being lifted in Australia, so maybe, but teams can't afford to play behind closed doors, and you've got teams that have to fly places as a semi-pro team, so it's going to be really hard to kind of get anything out of Australia. Potentially, I doubt the Australian or the New Zealand season happened this year, sadly. If you're Australian ice sports, your thing, I venture they'll probably be aiming towards the Australian Women's League, which plays in our winter, their summer. So the AWIHL will probably kick off around November, December time, 2020. That's probably much more likely than a 2020 Australian Ice Hockey League, sadly. But yeah, so there is a potential for hockey. The NHL very committed, of course, by the looks of it, to getting a Stanley Cup champion this year. Lots of people talking about the fact, there's going to be a big asterisk. Yep, there's going to be a huge blooming great asterisk because there is a worldwide pandemic going on. And it doesn't matter if everybody signs off on the format, that's what you get. It's like England's women being knocked out in the women's T20 World Cup in the cricket because of a better record in the group stages, rather than playing the semi-final they had because of the rain. If you sign up to the format, that's what you get. The teams are happy to do it. If the players are happy to do it as well, then you can stick your own asterisks after it. Doesn't make any difference. If it's been agreed, then that's what's going to be. It opens up the field massively, of course, and the draft. I'm not even going to go into what the NHL are doing with the draft lottery because there are like degree level like scientists who can't figure this one out. It's bonkers, but they do at least have a way of determining what's going to happen if a team that wasn't in the playoffs knocks out a team that was meant to be in the playoffs, and in terms of what the chances of getting like a decent pick are in the draft. But yeah, we've been going for about half an hour. What do we think? What do we think of the experiment? Do we like it? Do we like it? Do we not like it? What do we think? Obviously, this will be there for people to watch back afterwards. So I'm intrigued. I want to see what people think of this. Like, hopefully I'm audible. Hopefully the mic is working okay. Or I just go in really close like this and go ASMR. Yeah, as I figured it was worth a crack, and thank you for Bracknell for completely blowing my format sheet out the window. That was different. But yeah, questions, comments, anything anybody wants to chuck in? We're obviously about approaching kind of 10 past 8. Not going to go for too much longer, given there's not megatons to kind of talk about right now, and I haven't got the facility to kind of bring guests in or anything like that. So. Although that's obviously an idea, like I say, this is what some of the experimenting with kind of bits and pieces over this down period will be. Can we tweak the show? Can we make it better? Can we do things like bring guests in for chunks of it? Or do we kind of like what we have, just kind of like the big chop shop where we just kind of throw topics into the pot and we kind of pick out what's going on? I'm open and I'm easy in that kind of sense of I want to make this thing the best it can be, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We'll work it out. But really interested to hear what people think of stuff. Probably knocking the table whilst I'm talking wasn't my best idea. Probably would need a better camera eventually. Like I said, it does look a little bit like I'm sort of recording through a potato. But getting a webcam shouldn't be too hard, I don't think. That should be relatively straightforward to do. But what do we think? Questions, comments, thoughts? While you're all pondering on that. No big blue tablet this week. I've left it upstairs because I've got because like I said, we're just kind of mucking around experimenting. But we've got red velvet brownies, white chocolate, and raisin cookies because baking time is always happening in BOGW Towers, thanks to my wife, Emily. Like I say, how I don't have diabetes is a mild miracle for all concerned. I suppose, like I say in other news, I do need to put it live in a bit, and I will do once the... Actually, we can probably do it whilst we're talking because that's the joy of streaming on my computer. That means I can kind of do stuff whilst we're talking about it, because we of course have a piece that we need to that we need to send live, which is our piece about the return to Basingstoke next season of Alex Messam and Dan Weller-Evans. Elite League have announced, I believe, they want there to be a playoff final in late April 2021. If there's no vaccine, they're going to need to test people, potentially. Certainly would if they were going to try and restart things in September, I don't think. So maybe the Elite League would actually be relatively well placed, I think, to kind of do that January to April short, January to April sprint of a season kind of thing, and then kind of work from there. But the rosters are going to be, are people going to be allowed to fly? You can't have an all Elite League brick roster because they aren't going to do it. Oh, thank you, On to Watch. That's really helpful. Yeah, I can imagine it probably is very fuzzy on a big TV. Better camera, I think, is probably... Sound is great. That's the advantage of a good mic. When I started the podcast all those years ago, I invested in a good mic. Unfortunately, this mic has lasted really well. It's lasted my son wiggling it about a little bit. But good to hear the picture's good on a phone. That's useful to hear, because I know, obviously, the thing with Periscope is, where do you watch it for the most part? On your phone. But would obviously like the visual quality people are going to be watching on YouTube on like other devices, because obviously YouTube you can have it on your computer, you can have it on your telly and bits and pieces like that. So that's obviously a doable thing. So just tapping away, because we're going to get it's a bit like I say, in some ways I should have got the streaming software working ahead of time, because what you could have done is you could have all been sat there watching me put a piece live, but I don't think I'll bore you with that. So where are we? 8:10. It's gone all right for the most part. I'm going to do last call actually on questions and bits and pieces, because I want to get this piece out before we all go to bed, and I want to have a bit of a sit down and a chill, because for some of you who aren't aware, I do work in the NHS. I do help manage a GP surgery. I am, work is still pretty busy at the moment. It's starting to get a bit better though. It's not quite as manic, I think, where people are kind of used to this new way of working. It's made life a bit easier. But yeah, last call for questions and comments. Otherwise, I'm going to get this piece loaded. I think it's definitely going to be hopefully interesting. Probably raise a few eyebrows. If nothing else, Dan Weller, get an angry phone call from Dan Weller-Evans. Or Alex Messam. If you haven't had a chance, actually, the re-signing announcement that they did is at the very end of the Bison's end of season awards video on YouTube. That was quite fun. So I'm going to head on out of here and post this piece for everybody to have a read of. But yeah, a big thank you to everybody for coming on. Thank you for humouring us. Next one, we'll probably kind of do a similar format where, during last summer, we dropped down to kind of like about one a month. And I think that worked quite well. Obviously, 30 days from today, we'll find out what's happening at Bracknell. So we might coincide the next one to do that. But I think once a month, I think during the off season, I think works pretty well. It allows news to kind of accumulate and we can have that kind of chat. And we'll see whether we want to do it again on here or whether we want to do it on something else. I think we're going to call time on that case, as there's no other questions coming in. So we will head out of here. As we usually do, YouTube or Periscope, we should probably end the show as we always do. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Be sure to head over there in the next couple of minutes, because there will be a new piece on there about the return to Basingstoke for the time undetermined season of Alex Messam and Dan Weller-Evans. The back catalogue of the BOTW podcast is still there. BOTW.bannersonthewall.wordpress.com/podcast for those bits and pieces. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. Hit the like button to get our various content into your newsfeed. But of course, the best place to interact with us and the usual home of the BOTW What's Current stream is over on Twitter @bannersOTW. All our pieces get posted there. All our streams will get posted there. It will be, that's pretty much where we do the most of our interacting. Please do tweet us your bits and pieces, comments, questions, whatever. We try and interact with everybody as best as we can. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled on the Twitter as well. Anyway, if you don't follow us @bannersOTW, we are edging closer to 1,000 followers on Twitter. So it'd be really awesome if you're watching this and you haven't followed us, do head over and do that. I'm not going to beg, but it'd be nice, And like I said, head over there in a minute anyway, because there'll be a link to the new piece. I hope you're and I will round stuff off as I usually do. I hope you're happy, and if you cannot be happy, then please be safe. As my friend Scotty Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For Banners on the Wall at WordPress.com, this is Anthony Ross saying stay safe, and so long till next time. Thanks for joining us for the experiment. Take care, everyone.